Hey, I'm Taylor Dorsett, and this is the Professional Technical Interviewee. Technical interviews are hard, and every company does them differently. On this show, I interview engineering leaders to see what they look for in technical candidates, and then they perform a real technical interview with me. I hope you enjoy.
Great. Well, welcome back. Time for the technical here. The ball is in your court here. I believe Richard's gonna lead the technical portion.
Yes.
Yeah, Richard's going to lead it. I will just briefly say that I am here as an observer. I'll try to avoid any color commentary. So, yeah.
Sure. So for a little bit of background, this is an interview that we don't do anymore. And also, I personally have not conducted this one in like a couple of years. So normally we would have had like an hour for this, but I think we can just cut it down to like half an hour-ish. And it'll be fine. No need to like complete the entire interview. That's totally fine. But basically, so let's just talk through what the problem is and what our motivation is for giving it as an interview question, and then you can dive into working on it. So what we're going to do is this is basically a combination of like front-end development and problem-solving skills, but it's not front-end development in the sense of like really low level, really like high level, like building something that is like normally what you would do on the job. This is more of the like when you get into those weird edge cases where you really kind of got to drop down and start working with actual pixels, which does happen from time to time. So what we're going to be doing is making a Mondrian style art generator. So there's this artist called Piet Mondrian. I think that's how you pronounce it. Not sure exactly. We always just call it Mondrian. And I sent you this link where you can see some of his artwork. And yes, you can see it's a lot of like lines that intersect one another. There's colored rectangles that like interact with the lines. In some cases, you have rectangles that don't like intersect with the lines. They're just like, in the middle there, like you see in that upper left one. You can also see that they get increasingly complicated. Like some of them have more lines than others. Some of them have different rules about the lines. Like some of the lines don't go all the way through to the edge. And then the one in the bottom right corner is the Broadway Boogie Woogie is the most complicated one that has all this different stuff going on. So for this interview, basically we want to follow this style, but there's not really any particular thing that we're looking for in terms of like it must work exactly like this. Basically, it's up to you. Like, we recommend generally just like starting with something pretty simple and then trying to incrementally, make it more complicated and try to add more features that you see in some of his paintings here. But there's no like, oh, you must reach this end goal. Not at all. Really, what we're most interested in is just kind of watching you work and just seeing what it looks like to watch you, write code to solve an open-ended problem like this. So there's no right answer here. It's really just all about like when you're sort of in your comfort zone, at least to the extent that you can be within an interview, what are you able to come up with? So as far as ground rules, use whatever editor you want, whatever language you want, whatever technology you want, just in some way that you're able to come out with, something that draws some lines and some colored rectangles and stuff like that. So totally up to you as far as, any of that technology stuff. If you want to Google anything, do any web search you want, absolutely fine. We generally try to follow the philosophy that like anything you would be able to have access to, on the job, feel free to use it. Please don't plagiarize anyone else's code though. And of course, since this is an interview, like we'd appreciate it if you wouldn't, even though you could on the job, please don't DM someone and ask them how to solve it. But other than that, anything else is pretty much fair game. Okay, so let me pause there. Do you have any questions before we continue?
No, I have things running through my head, but this is an interesting problem. But I'm just to make sure I understand correctly, we're trying to get something like this on the screen. So it's not necessarily just JavaScript. I can basically use some type of HTML file and actually we want to be able to open this, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the goal is to get colorful pixels on the screen.
Cool. Okay, great. Yeah, it's an interesting problem. No
Cool.
Other immediate questions.
All right. Well, feel free to dive in, and I'm not just going to be totally silent here. Like I may ask you some questions as you're going along. Like oh, I saw you went with this approach, what other approaches did you consider? Feel free to like think out loud, talk out loud as you're going, or ask me more questions as we go. This is not a, I'm not just observing. What we can be interactive here as you go.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think of a good way to approach this, because immediately there's not like a, oh, this is the best way to do this that comes to my mind. So what seems plausible to me is I have a JavaScript file already. I would need to make some type of HTML file. Within that HTML file, I could probably add some type of container. Within that container, I can start using the JavaScript, basically start to make colors. I think would be the easiest thing, right? Like just make a blue box, right? Or a white box within our page. And then generating some lines within that, which I'm trying to think of a good way to do that. That might be randomized, but let's at least just get something on the screen here. Trying to think of other like ways to do that in JavaScript. That is, I don't know. It's an interesting one. What like the best way? So I've had used a lot of jQuery, but using regular JavaScript, I should be able to just yeah, it's just slightly more words through the same thing, but
no bonus points for using or not using any particular technology. So feel free to use, jQuery is more comfortable. That's cool.
Yeah. Cool. And I typically want to do some type of have an actual CSS file, but just to get something up. Let's see.
And also, we don't, we're not looking for like, oh, did you write the most semantic HTML for this? Not at all. It's really just all about the pixels on the screen for this one.
Cool. Let's make sure that this is up here. And I think I would need okay. What else am I going to need just to get a container on the screen here? Oh, maybe my syntax could mess it up here. Let's see. Working on something this morning. Usually I would use like a CSS file and attach classes to this, but just to get something out there, I thought that this would work. There we go. Okay, it was the container specifically. Okay, we got something on the screen. There's step one.
Off to a good start.
Great. So if we want to get some lines into this box, so if we've got a div that has a certain height and width, within that we could make other elements. I'm trying to think of the best element tags to use that would actually work well. I think if I just put another div within that, it would do something, right? We're going to do the same type of style, but a different color. It's white. Height is what's wrong here? Style white. 10px, 100px, quotation mark. There we go. Okay.
Beautiful.
So now we've got a line within that. If we do 15, it should be slightly further down. Oh, that's on top of the box, but that's a line within that line. So that's something. As far as a way to do that in any programmatic way, that's kind of an interesting problem. There's probably a better way to make these lines, and it would probably be more, well, it might be easier to do with some type of flexbox thing, just to make it all align better. But off the top of my head, I don't have that syntax. Okay, well, as far as next things to do, in theory, this works as a line. What makes sense to you, to try to move to generating those lines with some type of JavaScript, or generating these lines in a different way?
It's up to you. Definitely, I've seen people, go for either approach. Like, broadly speaking, two categories of approaches that I see people do. One is try to get something hard coded that gets all the, some different combinations of layouts going, and then try to, parameterize that and make it, randomly generated. And the other approach that I'll see is people starting with, let me try to randomly generate some, variables or data structures or something, some sort of representation of what I want to draw, and then figure out how to draw it. Either way works, kind of up to you. Or you can come up with something totally different.
Sure. Let's see if I can get something hard coded in place, because then it makes sense to me that it would be easier to write some type of JavaScript function, if we assign classes to it or IDs to those things, write some type of JavaScript function just to spit out X number of those things, right?
Yeah.
Once there's something hard coded in place. So I made this much larger so it's easier to see. So what this isn't doing, as far as my line, is that it's, I think, sitting on top of mine rather than getting the effect of, here's a line, here's a box within that, and then another line. It's just overwriting that, which I think if I change the height to, let's see, 500, it's just going to take over that entire top half. So to fix that, if the divs are on the same level, that won't work. But if this, I think Z indexing might be able to fix that as well. Also, rather than height, I'm trying to remember, we could also use like top, I think is a CSS property. We could just push something directly from the top of a page. So if we have absolute positions, then it's something we could do.
What do you think of the sort of the trade-offs between making it absolutely positioned versus not, versus something else?
Yeah, I think absolute position is probably the wrong way to go in the long run. I guess it depends on, like, using some type of flex situation or some type of grid system seems to make sense, since we are making grids, right? They look like grids, but using some type of absolute positioning is something that I think is easier for me to be able to do.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just curious. Like you said, you think it's probably wrong. I'm curious. Why would you think that it's probably wrong? or what do you think is like the downside of using absolute positioning?
Yeah, I think it would limit what we could do with this to some extent. Like this, we might be able to use absolute positioning to get things perfect on this page, but only in this page, in this one section, would would it work, right? And if, let's say, we wanted to push this into some other piece of our app or use this code in some other context, then absolute positioning would be dependent on what that page looks like, right? And I haven't done a lot of web development that uses absolute positioning. So it seems like it would likely conflict with what else we might use this for.
Got it. So like if you took this and put it on another page, what do you I just want to understand a little bit more precisely like what the problem would be. Like if you did this whole thing in absolute positioning and then you took it out and put it on another web page, like what would be the, I don't know, what wouldn't work about that? Or is there anything that wouldn't work? It just like might not work, or what would be the concern as you see it?
I think like let's say if this is on the Google homepage, right? I don't know if there's a good way for me to do this.
Sure.
But let's say it would basically just be overlaid on top of that page rather than like it would just be a giant blue square right here, right? Because we set the absolute, so it's always going to be right in the same spot rather than us being able to nicely put it right above Google, right? Or right above some search results.
Got it. Okay. Cool. Yeah. But like I said, I mean, for this problem, like, feel free to use it if you want to.
Yeah. Let's see. So if do absolute, then top. I think that might. We might px here. There we go. Okay. So what I'm expecting is basically now we can actually move this within our box rather than having it be in one spot. So if we made this, let's say 50 for our line across, then we're getting closer to something like this, right?
Nice.
And then we could do the same thing for vertical, the absolute right, I believe. If we wanted to go top and bottom, it could be wrong there though for height. Maybe we need to swap these two. Maybe not. Let's see. Vertical. Yes. Yes. I want the one that actually does it. There we go. Okay, so vertically aligned element. I want let's see. Okay. That's not what I need though here. Oh, this is funny. Maybe this is what I need to do this with Flexbox.
That also works.
Yeah.
So here's a question.
Yeah.
When you're using absolute positioning, what is it absolutely positioned relative to?
Good question. I don't know if I know the answer. I guess I've always thought it was absolute position to basically the top of the page or the top left of the page.
Okay.
But
So if we have right 150 pixels and it's relative to the page.
yeah, I guess I can see where we're going. Are we going the wrong direction here? Oh,
Yeah. So it's not relative to the blue, it's relative to the page. So it's often outer
got
space.
it. That makes sense. I thought I had this is 100 pixels. Interesting. I thought this was 1,000 pixels wide though. Shouldn't the blue
Sure,
box
but the
be?
page is the yeah.
Oh, but the page is right. I get what
Yeah,
you're
it
saying.
can be bigger
Right.
than the div. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So we're going in the opposite direction. So if I go left, there we go. That's what I need.
So there's a trick you can use, which is if you make that outer div be position relative, like the one that's the blue one,
Mm-hmm.
then the absolutely positioned things will be relative to the nearest ancestor that's either position relative or position absolute. Yep.
Let's see.
Although missing a semicolon after with 1,000.
Yes. Are you going? I actually spelled it right. Nice. Oh, okay.
Cool.
Great. So they are now absolute relative to that box.
Right.
Got it. Okay. And we've got the flag of Sweden, I think. Close to it.
I think that's Finland. Sweden's the one
Finland,
that's like
Sweden.
yellow, and
One of the Nordic countries.
I should know this. I've been there. Okay, it's in inverted Finland flag. Finland's like yeah, it's the line would be blue and then the background would be white.
Got it. Okay. So
Worth briefly mentioning that the flag of Sweden is that only the white is yellow. So if you wanted to change the white to yellow, you'd have
there we go. I think I've lost y'all, but that's okay. Got it. Okay, so these two lines, I could add a lot more lines and we could do crosses, but I think what makes sense at this point is figuring out some type of like naming scheme or some type of class scheme, because the way that I would want to write this JavaScript is basically maybe pass in a variable number of like 10 or something, right? Of how many lines, or maybe I can have lines, boxes. We could probably add other things. Well, let's say we have lines and boxes. I guess it might be useful to model this. So generate, what is it? I'll call it M. I can't remember what the
Mondrian, yeah, M's fine.
the artist name is.
One initial's enough.
Yeah. And so if we had lines as a variable and maybe boxes, so generate M, and we'll pass in 14, 12 lines and 4 boxes. Right? 4 boxes. So the way I would see this working is we could set up the lines so it's going to, they're all going to span the, well, some of these don't, but for in my head, these will all span the length of this thing. There'll be at least 14 of them, and they'll be assigned some positioning within the bounds of our box. And then the squares will also basically get the same treatment, but they'll be, rather than going all the way across, we could just make a square, which I didn't do yet, but I think would be fairly straightforward. We just would want the height to be, say, 100 and the width. let's see. Yeah, there we go.
Nice.
Oh, and the zoom's back. Nice. So does that makes sense to me as far as how I would structure the JavaScript? I was talking through it and
Sure.
outlining a function. Does that make sense to some
Seems
extent
like
as
a
well?
reasonable starting point. Yeah.
Okay, great. So the generation of that, I have to look up syntax on generating JavaScript. It's been probably over a year since I've done any JavaScript creating HTML. But I know it's fairly straightforward.
I mean, you can also do it with, React or jQuery or whatever you're comfortable with. Doesn't have to be plain JavaScript.
Yeah, I'm learning React right now at work, which is fun. I've basically done vanilla JavaScript or jQuery for my entire career, so it's an interesting shifting over. Kind of just want the syntax. Yeah, so something like this is what I was used to in jQuery.
Cool.
Let's see what the JavaScript equivalent is. Yeah, okay. So we can create an element. We can append that. Let's see. Okay, so let's see if we want to make our box as a div. Where isn't it like this? Oh, it's not an arrow function. That's a plus function. Okay, so you got a starting box, and then I think we can add classes to that. I don't know if you know off the top of your head, but it's just div.add class or something like that. Oh, this is if we're selecting it. That may work though. Let's see. They give you an article that doesn't really have any.
For the interest of time, I think it's classlist.add.
I think you can even do plus equals on class list.
Oh, really?
All right, so I basically want to add in all of these things.
You can also do I think it's .style or .styles. You can just set the string. Yeah, just
styles.
Style. I'm gonna have to
Like that there.
Since we're going with the in the interest of time, just looking this up myself.
That styles.
Yeah, sorry, it's dot style singular, and then you can say Yeah, I think you can just set it equal to a string. Let's find out.
Like that. Oh, okay. Right. So it'll have this added. That
Yeah, it might not let you do the string. I guess we can find out. It might ask you to ask like dot style dot height, but we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. So I would want to figure out some way to randomize the color, right? But less important there. And then the amount of lines. So we want to do some type of loop where we index is less than. Oh, that's not what I want. Where we're going to basically for each line create a different line. So element, same idea here, right? Where we make a div, and then we want to the line element. So again, we want to randomize this, but randomize the color, the height, the width, and then the position. And then we could do the same thing for the boxes. The thing that's coming to mind now is as far as the bounds, we haven't done anything with that yet. Like, what are the bounds that we're going to work within? I guess that could be always hard coded, but it also could be another variable that we pass in is what are the bounds of our painting, right? Do we want to have a height and a width? So that would be an element, right? And I would probably call it something like that, right? To make sure that we're within those bounds. Okay, and then same idea. We want to randomize the color and then color, width, height for all of these. Oh, and append them to our starting box. I think that syntax may work, but I may be off there.
You can find out.
Yes. Sorry, we would want to do a line element. We would want to append the box element. In theory, that seems like the outline. I'm trying to see what else. I don't think I'm actually writing. Like, I'm not writing to this index file right now. And I don't know if I know. Oh, yeah, okay. If just within a script tag, we can do that, I think, easily.
So we're at about the 30-minute mark, which is, like I said, this is normally like an hour, long interview.
Yeah.
for brevity's sake, I think we kind of like, get the idea. If you want, we can wrap up here and then just kind of talk about it.
Yeah.
I think you got a feel for it at any rate.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting problem, and with another a half hour, probably would be realistic is getting something on screen, right? Linking this file so it generates something, and then seeing what works with this and what doesn't, right? I'm sure the edge cases is basically the interesting part of this, right? After the structure's in place.
Sure. Cool.
Cool. Yeah, it's usually the technical portion and working through it. Anything else on y'all's side to add or to mention, to plug?
Richard is, of course, an author of Elm in Action. Copy available at your local online book retailer, I believe. And Software Unscripted, of course, as we mentioned at the top. I don't have anything currently to plug, but I'm a nice guy. You should look me up online. And we are hiring at NoRedInk, and we would love to talk to everyone interested. Yeah.
Cool. And although this is not a current interview question, I'm assuming there's probably something maybe in a similar vein. And this is definitely more interesting than reverse a string or some whiteboarding problem. So
one of the things that we tried to do with our interviews recently is I mentioned that we were trying to shorten them up, and one of the things that we were able to do is make them a little more focused. There are great characteristics to this interview in terms of finding folks who are really prepared to solve problems, but it's also a little loose compared to what we really want to do in terms of focusing in on the things we're trying to evaluate. So the replacements for those technical interviews are a little more focused. They still are not reverse a string. There's definitely some interesting stuff there. But yeah, it's I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, we often get positive feedback about saying that, like, candidates saying that they actually enjoyed our technical interviews.
Yeah.
So we definitely have tried to maintain that. Yeah, we actually mixed up the which interviews are evaluating what as part of our let's see if we can get the total length down. And fortunately, we were able to find a mix of interviews that does get a signal on all the different things we're looking for while also taking about half the time. So we were pretty pumped about being able to figure that out.
Pretty pumped is an understatement. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Well, thanks so much for both of you being on, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, Taylor, thank you so much. And do something fun this weekend, man.
Yeah.
It's Friday.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I think I've got this is an interesting enough problem that I'm actually going to try to get something on screen. A lot of times these get done, and I tell people oh yeah, I'll keep working on it, and then it's done. It's Friday, right? But this one, I want to see something pop up.
Nice.
Well, by all means, you should tweet out about it or something. Give us some screenshots. I'd love to see it.
Yeah. Totally. I'll just have a country's flag generator by the end.
Nice.
There you go. Hey, I think the country of Sweden or Norway would be really proud to have that be the outcome. So
yeah, great. Well, have a great weekend. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching the technical interview portion of the Professional Technical Interviewee. If you want to tackle this interview question, you can find it at github.com/professional-technical-interviewee. New episodes are released on the first 4 Thursdays of each month. Find us on YouTube at youtube.com/Taylor Dorsett or on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on new episodes. And remember, keep practicing.